think we're live. And I guess we'll just wait a little bit for some trickle in people. La 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 la
Yes.
la.
Game Boy is sacrosanct. We do not talk about it. Baby.
I actually, when was it? I gave a presentation on Game Boys at it was some big fancy academic thing earlier in 2022. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, like it was one of the ones that I decided that I really did want to deep dive into, kind of looking at how the politics of lockdowns were explored within this new medium and so forth. I just can't remember where that was. Where did I do that? There'll be someone in the comment, like, yeah, anyway. One of my
You've been
social media
kind of
people
busy,
is
haven't
following.
you?
Understatement of 2022. Like I was close to burnout, actually, sadly. But the very end of 2022, I spent finishing the final draft of my BL book, which comes out now formally. It's up for, like, if there's a pre-order link as well on the website for July. So hooray. Yay.
That's massive.
Yeah.
How long have you been working on it?
I mean, 8 years if you want to talk about like the whole research process, but the book itself, since late 2019. I started writing the book on the day that the last episode of Dark Blue Kiss came out. And it was like, it was the moment where I'm just like, I have to write a book on this. Like up until then, I'd just been kind of dipping my toe in here and there. And then after watching that series, I'm like, I have to write a book. Like it was just, I was compelled. Yeah. So yeah, about 3 years, I guess. 3 years, 2019 to 2022, specifically on the book.
That's so exciting.
And like all authors, now that the book is done, I never want to see it ever again.
Well, no, I was thinking we would talk about it once it was launched.
Of course. I mean, I'm happy. I can talk about a book without having looked at it. Like, I guess is my response. I mean, obviously my books. I mean, other people's books I need to read. But yeah. So
let's get started. Thank you for joining us, Thomas. Hopefully people know who you are, and hopefully they know who we are, so we can get introductions kind of skipped. But yeah, how have you been?
Is this me or DC?
Yeah.
Right.
How have you been?
I went to MagFest today. No, just kidding. I did go to MagFest, but that's not here.
I mean, I've been on an extended holiday for a month almost now. Like I was just saying that, I felt burnt out at the end of 2022. So like I've retreated to my parents' place. And that's where I am, which is why my net, as I was saying to you guys, is a bit choppy, but I am recuperating from a very busy year, and also getting myself ready for another very, very busy year, because I'll be spending half of 2023 in Japan, so which is exciting. But also, yes, 6 months, July through to December. Yeah.
Which part of July?
Like early July until like basically as early as I can go in July. So if it's the first, it's the first. Because I'm going to have a visiting fellowship at the University of Tokyo to explore idol fandom. Hooray!
I am planning. Well, family and I are planning to be in Japan for the latter part of July. So if we're there, maybe I'll say hi. We're going to be like Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, and stuff like that. So
I will be haunting all of the idol concerts, like the Johnny's concerts or the K-pop concerts, basically, and any Thai BL events that happen as well, because that's the other thing that I'm going across to look at, both academically but also in my, sad life.
For research purposes.
Everything is always research purposes, so I can write it off on my tax return.
Okay, let's not use this as evidence for when they do what's that called?
Audit.
A review.
Auditing.
No.
Yeah. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. We want to ask Thomas all his thoughts about the 2022 BLs and how the industry has changed and evolved, and also the genre and how it's grown in the last year. I feel like there's been a noticeable shift, um, very evidently in terms of the types of narratives and LGBT themes, and also political undertones in how BL
Yeah.
is changing and
Yeah.
evolving. But I wanted to start off by asking Thomas, what were your top BLs of 2022?
Okay, so I think top BL lists are always difficult, right? Because there's the series that you recognize are important and like critically significant, and then there's the ones that you personally enjoy,
Okay,
despite the fact that you recognize that there's problems with them. So I think I
let's
might,
start with importance
yeah,
and then let's go to critically. No,
yeah.
your
So I
personal
think
favorites and then
yeah,
critically
so I
important.
think I'll wear my formal hat and talk about the ones that are significant, either in the sense that they in kind of injected something into the industry or introduced some kind of element. So I think that one of the most successful and significant BL series of 2022, I would say, would be Semantic Error. Partly due to its huge significance in terms of queer representation within the South Korean media landscape, but also for kind of consolidating the emerging growth of BL web series within South Korea. So it was the success of that particular series and its very strong chemistry between its two cast members, Park So-ham and Park Jae-sun, and the kind of transition of the successful marketing of a webtoon to web series pipeline with a K-pop star tied into it. That Semantic Error is significant from an industry perspective, but also it's probably the first, I think, long form BL series in South Korea that has resonated with a broader audience. So, of course, Light on Me from 2021 was well received amongst the pre existing consumers of BL in Korea, but Semantic Error had what we call crossover appeal. It managed to appeal to both the core BL fans, as well as other consumer groups. And you'll see this even to this day with interviewees from people who are learning about what web BL is within South Korea. They'll talk about how they learnt about it from Semantic Error. And having watched it, or the idols who are getting involved in the BL industry are watching Semantic Error, as well as a few other series from Thailand and Japan, to kind of get themselves ready for it. So if I'm going to talk about one that is very critically successful, the one that I also quite enjoyed, Semantic Error from South Korea, I think is within my top kind of group. And I don't want to have my top isn't a list. I'm not going to say one is better than the other, but there's a group of BL series that I think are significant, and that's one of them. Japan's also seen a huge boom in BL series, particularly thanks to Tokyo Broadcasting Services, TBS. They have their new Friday night, late night BL subplot area, and whilst that's been really good, and I've enjoyed some of, but not all of the series in that, the BL from Japan that really resonated with me and I think was quite strong was Old Fashioned Cupcake, and I enjoyed it because not only was it a little bit less of a love comedy, which is what most of the Japanese BLs tend to be. They tend to be love comedies, so comedic, following in the footsteps of Kieta Hatsukoi. But it also was about an intergenerational relationship, and it was set in an office. And I think that if there's anything that 2022 has ushered in, it's the office BL trope, which has been a big thing in Japan since the 90s. But we're beginning to, it's no longer just engineering boys. And I think that that's where I transitioned to BL series that I quite enjoyed from Thailand, either because I really resonated with the fan action and kind of the celebrities that emerged out of it, or whether I thought the kind of story was significant. So I think that I will put, controversially, Kin Porsche, the series, within my top list. Notwithstanding some of the controversies around its representational politics, but I think that when I was watching it, I enjoyed it because it was a real breath of fresh air. And most significantly, the idols that they've injected into the Thai mediascape, Mile, Upper, Bile, Build, Jeff, and Barcode, like they have been a really significant part of my 2022. And then from GMM TV, it would have to be The Eclipse. And that is because it is a highly political BL series. As I think I spoke about in our last conversation, guys, you know, the Eclipse is is an allegory for contemporary Thailand and uses the love of boys as a way to explore some of these broader social issues. And we've seen a lot of that in Thailand in 2022. So also with, of course, Miracle of Teddy Bear being another one. And it is not a coincidence that the novels that these two series are based on is written by the same author, Prabhat, who views BL as a vehicle for pushing forward political narratives. And then another one that I would mention that was quite politically interesting and I think could have got a lot more love than it did was My Ride, the series. And that's because it explored class in a quite interesting way. And also looked at the realities of an older male loving couple navigating working class society in Thailand as one of the subplots. And I really, really appreciated, once again, the political aspect of that. And then my guilty pleasure BL of 2022, the one that I watched even though I knew kind of objectively it wasn't very good, to be quite blunt, was I Long Nai, the series starring Min and Ping. And I was talking to you guys earlier, just that series was massively popular in Thailand, even though internationally it didn't receive a lot of love. And there's a whole bunch of other series that I haven't mentioned by name that I enjoyed, but these are the ones that I think I'm going to put in my kind of top list for this year so far. And, you know, as we chat, I might remember others. And it's not a ranking. Just going to put that out there.
That's fair enough. It's on the record for the auditor if they want to know. So when they watch this video.
Can I just say, because you brought up Miracle of Teddy Bear, and, you know, which is one of the questions I was going to ask you, especially when I was watching it, and it was very soap opera-y, low-cron at one point. And I always tell people to stick with it. And one of the things that I know that you're more about, you can get onto the more of the political stuff. But I saw with that BL, one of the things, spoiler alert, it was talking about mental health and going to the doctors and grief and all of these big ideas in which, like, I didn't see about what I've seen in BL as of yet. And I thought that was a big change. And then all of a sudden for me seeing in BL afterwards, later on in the latter part of the year, talking about grief and things like that. And so that was, and also mental health. And even at the end there, it wasn't like, okay, everything's wrapped up in a bow. Okay, he still has to go to a therapist, and the mom is still dealing with dementia and all of these other kind of stuff, which is, I appreciated that they didn't like, okay, I don't know, also because it wasn't a GMM TV, and it was actually, I think it was a Channel 3 or whatever.
Yes,
and it was
Channel
just
3, which is also why there's a lot of melodrama in it, because that's what Channel 3 shtick is. But,
yeah.
And like, yeah, I think that to kind of, I think Prabhat, the author, puts it best when he talks about how he views BL, and he as a gay man writing and interested in kind of, progressive politics and engaging with human rights and thinking about the lived experiences of the downtrodden in Thai society. I think that Miracle of Teddy Bear is actually even more so than the Eclipse in many ways, where he demonstrates the huge potential for BL to as a genre to explore very sensitive but also important issues in society, and grieving and loss, and that the BL isn't just like a narrative space to explore same-sex issues, like I'm going to use scare quotes there, like the idea that the only political questions that a BL can explore are LGBTQ politics. What I think is really cool about Miracle of Teddy Bear is that whilst they did that as well, they also used it as an opportunity to explore questions that resonate with a huge number of people, beyond just the LGBTQ community. And I think that is quite exciting. And as much as, and I dearly love the Eclipse, because as I said, I think it's one of one of my top series, and I want to say an honorable mention for Vice Versa as well, but it doesn't quite break into the same level that the Eclipse does, is because that it explores these issues, but the dramatization, the GMM series does diverge a little bit from what the novel was doing, and that's quite typical of GMM in the sense that they will pick up a novel and tend to kind of fiddle with it. Sometimes they fiddle with it for the better. Not Me is a really classic example of that. But sometimes they do end up watering down the messages. And as we talked about last time, that is partly due to concerns over press censorship. Channel 3 with Miracle of Teddy Bear picked something that was quite politically important, but also not something that would lead the government to get upset with them. Whereas the Eclipse really was a critique of Thai society and the government and the structures of the government and so forth. So they had to tweak it to make it safe, in order to make sure that they and the actors appearing in it didn't get blacklisted. So I think that's important. But that's I think that the Eclipse is a really significant show on that behalf, but Miracle of Teddy Bear kind of just pips it if we're going to talk about kind of politics. If we're talking about the quality of the chemistry of the main actors, I'd probably put the Eclipse higher. First and Kautung, very, very, very good at what they do.
And you gonna say something?
No, you can go ahead.
And I'm glad you brought up My Ride, I Love You, because I really, really enjoyed it when I was watching it. So much so that I went to go read the novel, and then I've picked up every novel that he's written. But My Ride.
I just want to, full disclosure, Patrick is a friend of mine, so that isn't why I like the series. It isn't like, oh yeah, I'm gonna say this because my friend wrote it. But also because like we became friends due to the fact that I was very enthusiastic about My Ride as it was airing, and we connected that way. And I think that like Patrick is doing such an excellent job to push BL as a vehicle to explore things, and his conversations and my conversations often are focusing on some of his disappointments with the fact that some of the media companies, and I'm not going to name names, are not necessarily willing to engage with BL that is a little bit more innovative or experimental. And some of Patrick's novels are, because he's really exploring sci-fi in a lot of his work. Are quite innovative.
I can't wait till they finally come out with 7 days before Valentine, the BL, and then also I'm still waiting. I Kill You, I Love You, or I Love You, I Kill You.
I mean, my imaginary boyfriend's on the way.
Oh yes, I can't wait. Yes.
Starring like Thai BL royalty with Tor Sedderwood, one of the first ships ever back from Hormones in 2013. So like, Yes, but my ride, I like really that the exploration of class in my
Mm.
ride is a really, really significant um, issue within Thai society. And that's why I'm so thrilled that there is a BL available that people wanting to learn more about contemporary Thailand can watch and learn from. And because yes, some other Thai BL series do explore issues of class and so forth, but we're not looking at, super wealthy people having super wealthy lives.
Yeah.
We're looking at someone who is relatively privileged but is overworked within their privilege, and comes from provincial kind of background and has kind of lifted himself up by the bootstraps, and then someone who literally is at the bottom of Thai society. Like that I think is not something that I saw a lot of people recognize in their engagement with that series. The character Morg, like a motorcycle rider, like that, there's a stigma attached to that profession within Thai contemporary society. And my ride, I Love You, was all about exploring that. Like, not only was it Morg trying to kind of make sense of his relation, like his desires and his attraction to another man, which was new and kind of scary for him. But it was also about exploring, well, okay, so I've come to accept myself as a a man who loves another man, but now I also have to overcome the barrier of class. Why would a doctor want to date a bicycle, like a motorcycle delivery man and
Mm.
motorcycle taxi driver? Like that was such a really cool story to be exploring. Um, and like, yeah, and it's one of the series that I think deserved more love. So if you're watching this and you haven't
Mm.
checked it out, please do check it out. Like, I think that it like it's not perfect, but no series is. But I think that some of the political questions it's asking kind of, yeah, might help kind of navigate some of the issues that it has as a show from a production perspective, and it is produced by a smaller company.
And Mork is so cute, and he has dimples. Them dimples. All right, but
And then, like, there's that too. Like, if you're there for eye candy as well, there's plenty of eye candy. Like, the eye candy is
Um,
important.
yeah, that was all very interesting. Especially just the whole thing.
I feel like I should also throw in another honorable mention for Thailand as well. As many of you will probably know listening, I am more of a Thai-focused person, though I do watch things from South Korea and Japan as well. This year, I wasn't able to commit to Vietnam, Taiwan, or the Philippines, and that's just because if 2022 had anything, it was overproduction. There was too much, right?
Mm.
Which means that I had to choose very carefully what I watched. So unfortunately, I haven't engaged with some of the series that I've heard are quite good from Taiwan, or the Philippines, and I will honestly say I don't know what's going on in Vietnam at all. So if anyone wants to educate me, go ahead, give me some recommendations. I'm all down for it. Um, but yeah, honorable mention to Cutie Pie, purely for its political aspects. Like exploring questions of same-sex marriage, and using the kind of tropes of BL to kind of explore those questions. And there's a few series that did that, but I think Cutie Pie is the one that was most recognized. And I know that the Kin Porsche elephant is in the room, but we can address that in a little bit, I think,
Mm.
maybe.
Cutie Pie
One
was
of the
wildly successful. Sorry.
Yeah, oh, hugely successful. I mean, I think if we're going to talk about the ones that have really consolidated or launched careers, Cutie Pie has consolidated Dumundi as a major producer of BL in Thailand, and possibly one of the more significant competitors to GMM TV, to the crown of best BL production house. Beyond Cloud is probably trying to get that crown as well, but they aren't in the industry long enough. Like, they're too new to really um, take that position yet, but they're certainly gunning for it. And D-Hub House, if we're talking about series that are upcoming, D-Hub House and I Feel You Linger in the Air, I think, is going to be a massive, massive hit in 2023 if they don't screw it up. Because they can. There's always the potential for something that's very interesting to misfire, unfortunately. And you know, someone in my room is a good example of that.
Yeah. One of the things that I saw in BL is I don't know if this is the same thing or anything like that, if you noticed this, almost a queering of relationships in so far as questioning the single pairing, because in Corn Things too, which it wasn't one of my favorite, but the side couple was actually a polycule. It was this guy who ended up being bi, and then a straight girl and a gay guy, and they have their little polycule. And then I saw later on in the year, a lot of people, even though it wasn't a throuple, and Choco Milkshake, people wanted it to be a throuple. And yes. Do you I mean, it's just people wanting it to be, even though it wasn't, it was just like those three. Do you
I was going to say this, like, I like the uncle, but I felt like he was unnecessary.
Do you see a queering of relationships in that you'll get away from, or at least there's more or being open to more of well, you even have was it Close Friends coming out this year?
Yes, yeah. Which I've been constantly saying to everyone. Like, everyone's kind of like, oh, like, what are the couples going to be? How can Neo be with Force? And I'm just kind of like, you see that group of friends? That is just like a poly gay mess. That's the better end game. Like I highly doubt that it will go that way for various reasons. But it should. I mean, there was also a throuple kind of in Unforgotten Night, which is certainly not the best BL series of 2022. But there has been an emerging kind of focus on this. I mean, I think that I have to throw a shout out to Three Will Be Free from 2019. That's right. No, 2020. When did that come out? Anyway, back in the day, which had the poly mess, the throuple of Tay and Joss and Miles. I don't remember their character names. So like, I think that we are beginning to see this. We're also beginning to see more of a focus on kind of like unorthodox relationships and perhaps being more sympathetic to, for example, people who cheat, and maybe understanding that there are reasons why people do that, and that there is, like, I think that one of the things that BL has done in 2022, and you know, Kin Porsche is a clear example of this, is that they've been more interested in exploring relationships that are unorthodox or are unhealthy, and trying to navigate and think through them sensitively. So whilst I haven't watched Quarantangs, or as I said, I haven't been engaging with the Philippines except to watch Game Boy Season 2, which I enjoyed, and as I said, not going to put it in my top, but it was a very worthy successor to the first season, which was probably one of the best BL series of all time. And anyway, so like, I think that we're seeing a shift away from a really kind of pure, the idea of BL as pure romance, like pure love, and that it's engaging with the messier side of things, which, you know, as a gay man active in gay male life, it can be messy, more so than, you know, I'm certainly not getting certainly not followed around by my own school president supporting my, you know, upcoming music club. Which I say, like, I'm going to say this, like, it might be at the very end of 2023, 2022, but my school president sits at the top as well. And that's just purely because it is the perfect example of what BL fluff should be. Like, it is, like, yes, it follows all the tropes, but it hits those tropes so perfectly that it's well deserved. Like, I remember there was like a people voting on what the best BL of 2023 was, and then people getting very, very sore when the most voted on one actually turned out to be my school president. But actually, like, I think that it deserves to be up in the top. And just because, as I said, it might be classic, but if you can hit the classic formula perfectly, that's good. Like, that's hard to do. And yes, so that's another one that I think is significant. But I think we should be thinking about it more as a 2023 series.
I'm glad we have another Teo apologist, because you were talking about cheating, right? No, I don't know if you are, but like, we have some questions. People want to know your thoughts on 180 Degrees Longitude. Passes through us.
Okay, guess what, guys? I didn't watch it, and I'm sorry. I just didn't have the opportunity to watch it because it was released in the busiest time for me. So it's on my watch list, so I can't comment. But from what I have seen, I think that what it has done is it follows, I think, a legacy of a more sophisticated cinematic representation. Like, so from a filmic perspective, I think that it's quite usefully. And yes, as I said, if there's one thing that 2022 has been giving us, it's been questioning assumed knowledge, and like, I know that the relationship is about, like, age difference is a big thing, as well as the kind of relationships that exist prior to and surrounding it. But I can't talk about it because I didn't watch it, and I'm sorry.
What about I didn't watch these. Copy A Bangkok and War of Y. Oh, you haven't.
Okay, so War of Y. There's a reason why I haven't put War of Y in my top series, despite its very, very important exploration of the issues that exist within BL production culture. And that's because it is sensationalistic to start with. And as I talked about during our last conversation, I think that the problem I had with War of Y is that it raised all the problems, but narratively failed to deliver solutions. So what it did was it showed, here is the toxicity of XYZ, and then it was overcame through romance overcoming the problems of the industry, and then that romance would then emancipate you from the industry, which is always already going to be bad. And that's, I think, quite like, okay, so if you really want me to lay my cards out, that's weak storytelling, because
yes,
it doesn't because it doesn't offer a solution, except for the resolution is to remove oneself. And as someone who, and I should also flag, as someone who has done extensive field work in the industry and is aware of the problems within the industry, I can tell you now that War of Y raises important issues, but sensationalizes them, like makes them much larger than they actually are. So if you watch that and think, oh, this is the BL industry, no. There's reasons why that company chose to do that, for various things that I won't go into. So I don't put it in my top. And also, to be quite honest, there were issues of chemistry and issues of acting competence that I can't overlook as well, and direction.
So, like, I watched War of Y, and I still have to watch the final episode. But also, for me, when a series is like, oh, I have one more episode to go, and I don't care about it, but it's something like I have to do to finish it. It's not something I want to do, but for me, and it's just for me from somebody from the outside, I appreciate it was done in 4 stories, but it didn't seem interconnected. They felt like 4 disparate stories. And the first one I cared nothing about. I was like, what is all of this? The second one, I think because the first one was so bad, I was like, oh, this is better than what it was. But also as a commentary from what I know of the industry, I'm like, what are you, is this a commentary, or are you just making up a story, or he just happens to be in this setting, or
So
like
I
it was
think
just
from my perspective, with I mean, I liked Billy C. So Billy Sang. So like I put up with the first season just because I like them. Oh, a shout out, honorable mention shout out. We talked about this last time, to Secret Crush on You for having the balls to explore um, kind of a different kind of gendered politics. But once again, did it do as well? Did it do it as well as it could have? Like, if I'm going to put on my most objective film critic glasses, no, it didn't. It's an example of where the tropes hindered rather than helped the story. So with War of Why, like, and I'm sure that there's going to be people in the comments or on social media who are going to be a little bit kind of like shocked that I found it problematic, and I'm sure that there'll be people thinking of me as an apologist for the industry. But I think that what War of Why does, what a good BL narrative does well, is raises problems and then provides solutions.
Mm.
War of Why did not do that. Like, it did not solve the problems of that it was raising the questions around, and I saw that most clearly in the earlier seasons, like the earlier series, like I don't know what you call them, like mini series or collections. Like they really were just like, the BL industry bad. People go through it, not good, right? No one learns, and like I'm kind of like, okay, but you're creating a BL series, hence you're complicit within this production. So what's like, what are you doing here, right? Like that's kind of weird to me. So I'm not saying, like, I don't want to say that I think it's bad, because I didn't think it was bad, but I just think that if you're going to raise those problems, you do have a narrative responsibility and a thematic responsibility to resolve them. And
Sounds like you're suspicious of their intentions.
I'm not going to put anything out there, but there is, like, I was talking to some colleagues in Japan who also engage with, like, they're theorists of BL history in Japan, and quite big names in boys' love studies. So Fujimoto Yukari, Ishida Hitoshi, Hori Akiko. Like, for those of you who know BL academically, those names will mean a lot to you. For the average reader, it's kind of like, who's he talking about? But anyway, like, the conversations that I've had with them is that one of the things that they noticed as a worrying trend within some of these series that were quote unquote trying to explore the issues of BL fandom and production in Thailand was that they were adopting a pathologizing position of the fans, right? That the fans were somehow a problem, that they were delusional, that they were dangerous. And if that's the case, how are we as fans consuming that media supposed to understand ourselves, right? So I think that there's if we're going to talk about the politics of production and reception, I think that one of the things that War of Why does poorly, and I will use that word, is that it doesn't think about how some of what they're doing in, like, what role the viewer has within the world that they're producing. Because it's almost like they're trying to say, consume this BL content, but then the BL industry is bad. But we're still going to serve you up really, really hot NC scenes. What are you doing, right? Whereas Lovely Rider does explore exactly the same issues and does so within a narrative that explores, like, that kind of does have a resolution. It calls out the industry, but then explains why the industry functions the way it does. And the industry is presented as problematic, but at the same time and we see it doing real damage to the character. I can't remember his name. Is it Air that Bruce played? Like, and he gets like fucked over really badly. And yeah, like that shows you that, but it also shows you people who navigate through the system well. And use it to their advantage. And I think that's why Lovely Rider is a much better example of some of these kind of political questions, is that it doesn't take a zero-sum approach. It is managing to explore the greyness as opposed to black and white. So yes, I'm sure that there'll be people who will be coming for me, but yeah.
No, nobody's watching. Right? Nobody's watching. And Copy A Bangkok, I don't know what that was.
Copy A Bangkok is the production house that made War of Y.
Oh,
I think
right.
that Why Destiny is better. Like, I'm just gonna put it out there, guys. And like that one's like kind of trashy, but like I enjoyed watching it. I didn't enjoy watching War of Y.
I did, and that's the only reason why I watch War of Y, because I enjoyed Why Destiny so much. And
yes, me too. And I'm like, oh great, I get to see these guys again. Hooray! Like, you know, like and it was like that was it. And I think that, you know, I spoke about this in the last conversation you guys had with me, where I reminded people that the BL series function to provide a space for the ship to become concrete and then be set free from the world of the series. Why Destiny did not do that. And in fact, its main job was to kind of say, stop doing this shipping stuff. And like, that's not economically a very good thing to be doing. Like, yeah, I'm taking the side of the production house here. Do people going through that, are they damaged? Yes. Does entertainment companies need like to be more responsible to questions of the mental health and the public personas of their talents? Yes. Is that exclusive to BL? No. Should we be demonizing BL as a production system in order to get people to watch our series that is a BL? Don't know. Yeah, anyway, I think that's probably enough Why Destiny talk from me.
So with the, let's pivot to, I guess, if you've seen any sort of like visible impact from the BL. What I'm interested also is like how some things are more popular in Thailand versus internationally, and
Yes,
like what that means for future BL.
Why is there like a huge fandom in Thailand for Mean Ping, the stars of I Long Nai, when that series was like quite retrograde within the context of the developmental histories of BL. Like, it was very much like I'm watching it, and I said this to you guys earlier, and I'll say it now for the audience. Like, when I was watching I Long Nai, which was a guilty pleasure of mine, and I was watching it going like, this is crap. Like, but I just couldn't look away. Like, if that had aired in 2017, it would have been perfect. It would have been one of the best series that was ever released, right? But in 2022, it's really not. But the thing is, it really speaks to the significance of chemistry in the Thai BL series and the Thai fandom's engagement with BL. Mean and Ping, particularly Ping, had amazing chemistry. Like, they bounced off each other really well. And yes, they were wooden actors working with a poor script in a poorly shot series, but they had something that was able to transition off the stage and hence allow Mean Ping to become liberated from their series and become significant talents within the broader Thai celebrity ecosystem. That is what BL is supposed to do from a production perspective, right? And Thai fans intuitively know this, right? So for me, it's like one of the things that I had a lot of conversations throughout 2022 with international fans, predominantly over like kind of social media discourse, whilst I was also concurrently doing fieldwork in Thailand, because I was in Thailand for all of September doing some final finishing touches on my book. And it really hit home to me that Thai audiences consume the stars, whereas some international fans consume the characters still. So it is who are you shipping? Is it Tin Gun or Gemini Fourth? Is it Boon Prem or Win Team? In Thailand, it is the actors. And like to the point where people will talk about, look at the chemistry, or like Boone is so in love with Prem while watching a Boone Prem scene in Between Us, which I really enjoying, but I'm afraid that I'm not going to put it in my top series as much as I am a massive fan of Boone Prem. Like that's one of the differences, and that's a really significant difference. And one of the spaces where we've seen some of this emerging to create a lot of controversy and messiness between various international fandoms is, I said we'd get to the white elephant, Kin Porsche, where Thai fans are more engaged with the actors than the characters. And hence, they're not necessarily going to project their criticisms of the representational politics of Kin Porsche onto the actors themselves, because Kin Porsche exists purely as a vehicle to scaffold the shipping of the actors together. Does Kin Porsche have representational problems? Yes. Is it exclusive to Kin Porsche to have those representational politics? No. Can we consume media that is morally grey? Of course we can. Does is Kin Porsche like so it's interesting because like I find myself like, unlike some people, I haven't felt the urge to rewatch Kin Porsche. I enjoyed it while it was airing, but haven't felt any urge to go back to watch it. But I have still been engaging with the fandom for the actors, and I'm quite into them still to this day. And I think that is because of the experiences I had in Thailand, where they are hugely popular. I was overwhelmed when I attended a event for that Mile Upper were headlining, and just their complete domination of the whole of Central World Mall in central Bangkok. And if you know Bangkok, you'll know that that's a huge mall. And like I saw that Mile Upper kind of event the day after I attended an event for Meta Win, who is one of the stars of Together the series. And like that, I thought that was crazy. And then was at Mile Upper's event, and that was even bigger. And like it cannot be overemphasized just how successful Kin Porsche was in Thailand, and how important that kind of shift. I mean, there's a reason why we're suddenly seeing so many mafia shows coming out of Thailand, or mafia-esque shows coming out of Thailand, because it's introduced a new formula. And like I think that's important to really kind of recognize as significant to BL. I also appreciated the fact that we had a very different kind of dynamic. Yes, if you really want to put on your very hardcore BL kind of reading glasses, and you can say, oh yeah, there's Seme and Uke politics and blah 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 blah. But it's not so prevalent in Kin Porsche. Like it is kind of hidden under a veneer of something else. That's something else that I can't really define. So yes, are there questions of sexual violence and sexual like lack of consent? Yes, of course there are, but they're not. It's not unique to BL. Does it romanticize rape? I don't know, because I think that depends on how you read it. Are the authors of the original novel problematic? Yes, and I think that that's an uncontroversial thing to say. We all know that they're problematic, and that the source text is extraordinarily concerning. but Beyond Cloud, which of course still involves these guys in it, have managed to massage it to the best of their abilities to get rid of some of the worst excesses. But I think that we cannot deny, or at least I cannot deny, the significant impact of Kin Porsche, the series, in Thai BL spaces. And I want to emphasize that I was talking about crossover appeal, how some series, so Miracle of Teddy Bear had crossover appeal. It managed to reach out to non-BL fans. Kin Porsche had crossover appeal. It managed to reach out to fans of action. It was actually consumed by a wide audience beyond just those who watch BL. And most significantly, it was watched and enjoyed and celebrated by Thailand's gay male media kind of landscape, in the sense that they viewed it as a kind of interesting example in which BL was actually engaging with what some gay male men wanted, as opposed to what straight women wanted. Okay. And that's partly because if you think about the history of queer cinema in Thailand, like Kin Porsche actually resonates very strongly with an old film called Bangkok Love Story, which was a series about, you know, mafia and police, and it was all about mask for mask and so forth, and it was by Poj Anon. So I think that's why I put Kin Porsche up the top, even though I recognize it has both a lot of controversy around it, and b a very passionate and sometimes too passionate fandom, and a lot of messy fandom stuff going on. But I think that it should be rightly recognized as significant. And perhaps one of the things that the rise of Kin Porsche and Cutie Pie signals that I've already mentioned earlier is that GMM TV, they had a particularly weaker 2022, as much as I liked, for example, The Eclipse and vice versa. Like their series, until my school president, they haven't had the mega hit this year that they had, for instance, with Bad Buddy, 1,000 Stars, Together the series of Dark Blue Kiss that we've seen in previous years, as well as other series that had, they haven't really shaken up the media landscape as they have done in previous years. And that's something that GMM TV clearly recognized, which is why the lineup for next year is extraordinarily innovative from the perspective of GMM. There's only one university story. I mean, I guess the one that stars Perth and Chimon is also a university story, but that's about class. That's what that story is exploring. Whereas, you know, Hidden Agenda with Jung and Dunk is it's just engineering boys falling in love. I'll still watch it. But it's like, I think that Jung Dunk is very interesting because they are brilliant off camera, but when they were in their series, well, no comment.
That in itself is a comment. No, it's interesting to see, like, when I was watching the trailers for GMM TV for last year, it seemed like they were trying to diversify to do different genres. I was excited about sci-fi and supernatural, but it didn't really like go there. It kind of stayed within. The trailers were more hypes for me then.
Yeah, I enjoyed vice versa, and I love Jimmy C, but they did not play with the kind of sci-fi setting of that particular story as well as they could have, which is a real shame. That story, like the story had a lot more potential. And I'm saying this not to say that it was bad, because I thought it was good. And I've already explained in a previous conversation with you guys why there was so much product placement. So I'll reiterate that there was double the amount of product placement in vice versa, so that the Eclipse didn't have any. So that was why that happened. But yeah, I think so. This is my hope for 2023 with GMM, and also my worry is that yes, they're very clearly trying to diversify, but do they have the capacity to do so? They are a risk averse company. They do what makes them money. And I know this because I worked with them for many years, right? So they yeah. I was like so one of my big shocks for 2023 was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but was there a novelization, like something based on a novel by Jitty Rain in the lineup at all? I don't think
Oh,
so.
I'm not sure.
I wish I knew what you were talking about.
So
I
Jitty Rain is the author of Theory of Love and Together the series and vice versa. And they really leaned on her after the success of Together. Um,
all of those are
and
on my to read.
yeah. And yes, I think that it might be a very strategic move that there isn't a novelization. Like, and unless there is one and someone corrects me, but the other thing is that we are seeing GMM beginning to do their own original stories. I mean, Never Let Me Go is technically an original story. Technically. Original. By that I mean that it's not it's not based on on a novel that already exists in the world. So yes. Anyway, yeah, and I think that my hope for 2023 is that GMM does continue its diversification, particularly because they're going to have massive competition, both within and outside Thailand, from Dumundi, who have released their lineup for 2023 and have basically said, okay, GMM, we're taking you on. Very, very deliberately.
Scandalous. Wow.
And then you've got D Hub House with its two projects for this year, sorry. And Beyond Cloud have yet to announce anything concretely beyond the Mile Upper movie, but they must be working on something. You just need to remember, for all the people on Twitter angrily shouting, "Where is your lineup?" They are a smaller company that have less resources. They take a little bit more time to do things. Also, they are still working through their world tour. Which is what they're primarily focusing on right now.
I was
Yeah.
oh, I was just thinking this. I was like, okay, as BL diversifies its stories and it gets into the other storylines, they're not just competing against BL, but also these other established stories. I was thinking, and now I kind of say, okay, gives us vice versa was a multiverse story,
Yeah.
and it wasn't good. And as a multiverse story, neither was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Like everything, everywhere, everything everywhere at once was the best multiverse story. And so when you start competing
Yes.
against other like stories, not just in BL, but then also outside it, you have these other metrics that you have to meet.
Yes.
That
And
is,
this is really important. And I think one of the reasons that I want to just circle back to Kin Porsche is because the directing team and the action team were the big names in action production in Thailand, right? So from a metric, if we're going to judge Kin Porsche as an action series, it ticks all the boxes. So that's another reason why it had crossover appeal, because it was a successful mafia series, like with gay sex. I'm not going to complain about that. Yeah, you know what I mean. And with characters that are morally gray and complex, because that's the norms of that genre, right? So if you're only familiar with BL without understanding how, so BL is both a genre, but it's also a content, and this is where things become concerning, is that, or like difficult when it comes to trying to make sense of it, is that it needs to, if for a series like Kin Porsche, it needs to hit the kind of metrics of both, and that can be disorientating if you, for example, are a BL consumer who has never engaged with like a mafia or an action series, for instance, or like when it comes up to our 2023 live, historical series, and you're not familiar with the conventions of Boran Lakon, which are period dramas from Thailand, it might be difficult to consume. Or if you're not familiar with the hyper melodramatic acting of mainstream soap operas in Thailand, The Miracle of Teddy Bear and Kun Chai are difficult to watch. And I forgot to mention Kun Chai in my top list. Kun Chai is in the top list. Kun Chai is a really important series, both in the context of how it brought BL into like soap opera context in Thailand, because Kun Chai is not a BL series; it's a lakon. It's a soap opera that just happened to engage with like a story focusing on men falling in love and exploring the complicated politics of that and mafia stuff. Like, you know, like see, it's like and also tapping into contemporary Thailand's fascination with Chinese popular culture as well. So yeah, that like Kun Chai, and it's actually been quite interesting because 1HD who produced Kun Chai, they didn't know what to do with what they got. Like they suddenly had Jam Ratata and Film Tanapon. Like they had them as a kujin, an imaginary couple, and they're like, okay. And like they had like fans saying like, we want merch, we want fan meetings, we want XYZ, and they're kind of like, what's going on? Like they, you know, which is, you know, for some of us who are embedded within that world, it's kind of like, how can a major production house in Thailand not understand like BL fandom culture and merch and so forth? But it just kind of reminds you, I think, something I talked about with you guys last time, is that the powers that be within mainstream Thai media culture are still remarkably conservative, and they don't quite get what this is all about. And hence, this is why BL actors can't come out. This is why it's still very much a subcultural thing rather than mainstream, though it's increasingly becoming more mainstream. So yes, anyway, segue. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just like ranting.
Wasn't there like a BL that actually featured a real life couple? Oh no, that was in the Philippines. Or
Yes, but I mean, there are. I mean, there's the ones that aren't public about it. They exist. I'm not gonna, as I've said to you guys before. But like for instance, Ailong Nai, like the male married fathers of one of the characters, was played by a very famous LGBT like gay couple, influencer couple, Porsche Arm. You know, and, you know, that's all very well and good, but maybe they should have hired people who can act. But yes, anyway. But yes, they were a real they were a real married couple. Yes, yeah.
it's interesting with the whole thing, with the whole shipping culture. It's not something like I understand it, but like I didn't realize it was so prevalent, and that was sort of the definitive difference between international and local viewers, and the whole.
Well, it's not that international fans don't do the real person shipping, and in fact those who embed themselves. So I guess one thing I would say is that like I'm consistently engaging with international fans who are new to Thai BL culture and haven't quite clicked how Thai BL culture has. Whereas if you've been in it for a long time, shipping the idols, and they are idols, like is it's second nature, because you've become socialized into the way that Thai fans themselves behave, or you might have come to it from previously shipping in another context like K-pop, right? But for others who have just kind of stumbled upon the world of Thai BL because it's becoming increasingly more visible in social media, you don't necessarily possess that cultural knowledge. And like, so I've had conversations with people where they were saying it took me a long time to learn about that because I've come from background X, and we've always viewed real person shipping as unethical, and I felt like I felt uncomfortable about blah 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 blah. But now I realize that it's a different way of doing things, and that you can do both, and that's okay. Like I think that that's an important caveat. It's not like I'm saying like Thai fans do this and international fans do that. There's a whole plethora, but Thai BL fans, at the very instance when they get involved in this thing, like you don't live in Thailand where this is the dominant way of consuming and not know that that's the entry point. Whereas international fans, they often have to take an extra step in order to come to that. Many international fans, unless of course, as I said, they've come from a background that already involves in shipping. So K-pop shipping, for instance, or got involved in some kind of Chinese media shipping culture or something like that.
But it's really about that, I guess, imagination of them falling in love. If they were an established couple, for example, would that be less interesting? Was that one of the plot points of Worldwide? Like,
no, I mean, like, I think the thing that Thai BL fans, I think the good ones, like they know it's not real. Like they know it's not real. Like whenever I talk to people in Thailand that aren't like crazy Dilaloo maniacs, like they just like, oh yeah, this is just stupid fun. Like, but like it's like and like I think that most people who engage in shipping do have that critical reflection. And as I said, the ones that don't, well, they're one, I would say, a minority, and two, they're the people who are more likely to be kind of looked at skeptically by everyone else. And I think that one of my concerns with some big name fandoms active on Twitter right now, that I won't name, wink, like, is that they're some of them have perhaps not taken to heart the idea that you just kind of ship the dudes for fun, like, and that it's not real, and that it isn't like worthwhile kind of sitting down and having these long, writing like 10-page essays about why person X is a rotten person because they didn't appear on Instagram Live A.
That's the thing where I'm kind of like stuck on. It's sort of like, if some couples were real, like what would that do to the industry?
It's interesting because the conversations I've had with people in Thailand is that they're all for it. I feel like, oh yeah, whatever. And like and like some of them are like, oh, they'll say things like, I gave a presentation at an institution, a tertiary institution in Thailand, called the National Institute for Development Association, and yeah, fancy name. And I gave a talk on my book, and I was talking about how coupling shipping works, and I was giving lots of various examples from like GMM, because that's the case study I usually work with. And, I was talking to them about how there's various like really significant shifts, and some of them are getting increasingly vocal about politics. And like I showed a picture of Earth Mix, and then this guy up the back is like, they're real, like screaming. And I'm like, and I think that for some people, like, that wasn't delusional. Like, that was actually like, you know what, like if they actually decided to come out, that would be even better. Like, that's the kind of thinking that kind of discourse reveals. And whether or not they're real or not is beside the point. Like, the point is that like someone would be happy if suddenly there was a live, I mean, those two got married, for God's sake. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so
for Cornettos.
Yes, exactly right. But also to make a point about same-sex marriage. Like, we need to remember that, yes, it was an ice cream advertisement, but it can do two things. I mean, hell, like Jimmy C proposed to each other with Lay's chips, in vice versa, which was one of the most surreal moments of my life, because I was watching that happening in a theater with Jimmy and C like in front of me. I was like, what the hell? Anyway, but like, this is the thing. Like, I think that there's this kind of perception, and I shouldn't be shitting on War of Why so much, but like War of Why had that narrative where it's like, if you come out, you'll ruin your fandom. I'm not sure that's the case. I'm not sure that's the case. We are far, far, far removed from back in 2018 when they were doing the casting call for Love by Chance, and they said, we're only going to hire straight guys. Like, it's not 2018 anymore. We are now in 2022. like, well, actually 2023. So like that is not what the industry is anymore. Like,
That's so
and I think,
interesting.
yeah, the fandom isn't so, like, to be fair, like with the amount of like people who routinely DM me asking if Mile and Apo is real, like I think that they'd be genuinely pleased to learn if they're real. My response to that, if I don't ignore them, is like, first of all, guys, stop DMing me about like ships because I'm not going to engage. But two, who cares if they're real or not? That's not the point. The point is
It's
that
not.
they're fun they interact with each other really well. They have great chemistry on the screen, and they're both interesting people. Like, that's the point. That's where it ends, and we're all having fun, and they're having fun with us while playing along.
Yeah, I guess the thing that I'm trying to figure out is because we have these two sort of like forces, it's like the commercialization of queer romances and I guess the believability and selling that as a point, and also the chemistry and all that stuff. But then actually pushing for queer rights and then going, like using BL as that vehicle, eventually would we get to a stage where we do have real couples, or does that lead to it
I think
becoming more of an open space for?
I think one of the things that I want to backtrack to is just that point that I made last time I spoke with you guys, that like, whilst the industry is certainly pushing in towards this direction, the broader mainstream like Thai society and like powers that be are not ready for that yet. So I think that there still needs to be, like, for instance, we need like legal reform in Thailand first, and the Thai BL actors are, many of them are very, very vocal about pushing for that. Z Nu, to give them as an example, they ended Cutie Pie with a kind of call for same sex marriage. The current second season that's currently airing is specifically focusing on the marriage in many ways as well as other things. And like Nunu is constantly posting like resources about same-sex marriage, particularly when it is, because it's before the government in Thailand. The parliament is debating it still. They've been debating it for many years, and they probably will continue to debate it for many years until there's a general election in Thailand at the end of this year, we need to remember. So like, I think that we're still in the moment of transition, and like, whilst I hope that we're moving towards a space in which we could have an openly like an open couple, like an actual couple appearing in a BL series. The fact of the matter is, though, that an actual couple doesn't need to appear in a BL series because they're able to use shipping culture already in other spaces. Like, so if we think about like social media influencers like both New Year, I don't know if you guys know them, but they're a couple, like, and they basically are shipped, and they're actually together, and like that's a thing. So and they're able to use the kind of mechanisms of Thai BL popular culture to carve a space for themselves as like gay male influencers, right? And we're seeing that happening in South Korea as well, with a increasing rise of gay men on South Korea streaming services as well as on YouTube, using the kind of growing interest in queer content from South Korea to produce and create their own content and intervene into the world of kind of like fandom for queer relationships in East and Southeast Asia. And yeah, there might be those broader questions around the voyeurism of looking into that, and then how these people are playing to particular gazes. But these gay men have chosen to do that, and there's all sorts of things. The space where I don't see any of this developing or happening, sadly, is Japan. And that's because, I made a passing remark that the reason that I liked Old Fashioned Cupcake, which was a mini series, right, was because it wasn't a love comedy. And yes, we've had a few like Japanese BL series, like Eternal Yesterday, which were certainly not love comedies, like, at all. But BL in Japan still is very much in a rom-com mode, and isn't exploring political questions at all. South Korea is the same, but I've been enjoying how South Korea is becoming, like, they're focusing, like, there's a reason why South Korean BL web series are all basically office series, and that's because the consumers in South Korea are mostly older, and that's what they want. Like, they want to see their own worlds reflected. That's why we've got series like Shinip Sawan, the new employee, or the director who buys me dinner. Just ignore the fantasy elements of that, because that's also an office series, right? So I think that Thailand, we can be critical of Thailand, but if we compare it to other markets, it's doing much better in some regards. And the other thing is that we've got this vibrant kind of LGBTQ media landscape emerging in East and Southeast Asia at the same time as Western media production and streaming services are consistently shutting down these sorts of narratives, with Netflix rather famously, nuking a whole bunch of sapphic series, right? So, I think that we shouldn't be too hard on BL when it's doing objectively better in some regards, both economically but also from a social perspective, than Western media has managed to do, right?
That's the interesting thing is all the inclusion of, I guess, idol groups, because I think thinking back maybe 5 years or whatever, you'd think it'd be a stigma to appear in these BL shows to
And
get
it still
rumors about
is,
you.
sadly.
Okay.
Yeah, recently, the one of the stars of he was in Kissable Lips and also the Pung Duck something something. So his name is Kim Ji-woon, and he's now a contestant on an idol survival program called Boys Planet. I think that's what it's called, or something like that.
They live in the wilderness, or
no. It's an idol production show.
Okay.
Dancing, get voted.
I would watch that. Like Idols in the Wilderness.
I also enjoy watching idols struggle to do what most regular people can do easily. Anyway, and so there was some kind of homophobic kind of backlash against him amongst haters, basically, kind of oh look, he's because to be fair, the other member of that couple, Yo Subin, is quite controversial in South Korea because he was removed from an idol competition because of allegations of bullying. So yeah, and someone used his appearance, the appearance of the other guy, Kim Ji-woon, in 2BL series as a reason that oh look how gross, can we have this guy as an idol? He was kissing another man, yuck yuck yuck. But at the same time, we're seeing more and more kind of K-pop production companies willing to take the risk, and have their idols appearing in BL shows. And that's because, for instance, Park Jae-chan from DKZ managed to transform the success of his band almost overnight through Semantic Era. They went from, it's a bit similar to the Brave Girls phenomenon, where this girl group was pretty much unknown, except they were popular with the army and hence became a big name. Likewise, DKZ were an unknown group in K-pop, and then because Park Jae-chan was so popular through Semantic Era, people discovered the group, and now they're quite successful. So other K-pop production companies are seeing that and going, okay, that looks like a risk we're willing to take. And so they're no longer as worried about the stigma. And I want to emphasize that with the person, the anonymous Twitter troll who decided to go after Kim Ji-woon for, calling them out for appearing in a gross show where he's kissing boys, that's disgusting. Their talent agencies have sued them for defamation, and the official stance is that we don't tolerate homophobic attacks on our idols. So they called out the person for their homophobia, and in South Korea that's a big deal, because idols don't usually say political things. And Park Jae-chan, for instance, has when he was doing interviews and people were saying, "Aren't you worried about appearing in this show and that it might cause like backlash or your fans might misunderstand you," whatever that means. And he's just like, love is love. Like, I'm doing this because like I think that like we need to have these stories told. Like, and like I don't care. And like, you know, one author said, like, one interviewee famously asked him, like, aren't you worried that BL, with that's kind of like splitting the characters into like a masculine man and a effeminate boy, their words, not his, isn't that like, don't you feel like as a man, don't you feel concerned about, you know, taking on that effeminate role? Many men in your generation wouldn't want to do that. And he's like, I think like, and he's just basically like, no, like I think that like, what does it mean to be a man? There's lots of different ways to be a man, and if I can show that there's like alternatives to like this kind of strict, like I don't want to be that kind of man. I want to show that there's lots of different ways to be masculine, and this is just one of them. And like so he's used his platform as much as he can to make statements, and most of the idols that are being casted, and like as I always say, like I think that we shouldn't just be viewing this as some kind of spurious pink washing or queer baiting. Like I honestly think that they do engage with this in good faith, and that they're saying these things. Yeah, they're not like out there calling for anti-discrimination legislation and same-sex marriage and so forth. Because in South Korean celebrity culture, you can't really speak politically. Your agencies won't let you. So they're saying what they can say within a tightly controlled media market, as people who have a lot less autonomy than Thai celebrities do, for instance, to be quite outspoken. And the same is true of Japan. Like those celebrities don't get to say anything. Meanwhile, in Taiwan, you've got boys basically snogging each other on TV, going like, "Oh yeah, let me eat your tongue." Like, and
okay,
that's what I like about the Philippines.
Is it the same?
Like, yeah, to their credit, the Filipino BL industry is also extremely political, like openly so. Like so yeah, that's another space where we're seeing these political voices and activist positions coming out quite vocally, and it's just because of the nature of the media landscape. So I hope this year, 2023, we'll see more of that.
So, but the Japan idols, is that similar as well? Because there's
100%. Like even more. Like it's stricter even in Japan actually than South Korea. And South Korea looks very strict on the outside, but Japan has lots of hidden strictnesses, if you will. That yeah.
But has there been like a similar like popularity or a boost to these idol groups based on?
So here's the thing. Like so we had So with Kiyota Hatsukoi, was very, very important to cementing the careers of Meguro Ren and Michieda Shinsuke, the stars, and their related groups, Snowman and Naniwa Danshi, respectively, from Japan's top talent agency for male idols, Johnny's and Associates. The thing is that they were already on their way to kind of stardom anyway. But the thing is that when that series was kind of circulated in Japan, it was always a love comedy. The word BL was never used, ever, despite the fact that they knew that it was. And it was actually quite interesting to see that. Whereas now, post Kiyota Hatsukoi, and the same is also true of Cherry Magic, the words BL were never used in the promotion of that series. And of course, the actors appearing within Cherry Magic, and I love Cherry Magic dearly, and I love Machida Keita and Akaso Eiji dearly as well, but they have not made any political claims at all, full stop. And that's not because they don't want to, it's because they can't. That's just the nature of the Japanese media landscape. Like, idols do not speak politically. Actors do, but all of these guys are idols.
One of the
Machida Keita, probably closest to being a legitimate actor.
One of the unfortunate things that I wanted to raise is maybe like Holland releasing a BL, but it never not getting any sort of like coverage or waves or like.
Holland Ocean Like Me came out, and he was in that.
Yeah, Exactly.
Yeah.
But then,
Like,
obviously he's participating in this industry and he's an
yeah.
out idol.
So,
But then,
and like, this is exactly it. Like, Ocean Like Me came out, full stop.
but isn't that
End of
unfortunate that
discussion.
someone who is obviously out and trying to politically create a difference isn't getting, the same sort of coverage or traction that, other people are getting?
Well, how do I say this delicately? Perhaps I can't.
Don't say it delicately. It's our channel. We're ruthless. Well, I mean, are we? I don't know.
Look, no comment, which I think people can read.
Okay, I haven't watched it, but I guess.
Oh, like if
I
we're talking
guess I
about
should.
Ocean Like Me, it's crap. I was talking more about Holland more broadly.
Oh, okay. No comments about Holland.
Yeah, I mean, beyond respecting what he's doing immensely.
What about the out actors in Thailand then? My Only 12% with Kuhar.
Yes, so I like that. Like, yeah. I think Studio Wabi Sabi is great for that. My Only 12% was like good for what it was. It's not like brilliant, but like they act the hell out of it, both Kuhat and Santa. And I have a soft spot for Santa, even though every time I'm like soft spot for Santa, I'm like Santa Claus, yuck. But like that series is good. Like one of the things I really always emphasize when talking about Thai BL is that we need to remember that there are quite prominent producers and directors from the LGBTQ community, and that we should be celebrating them as much as the actors. Like Alf, both of the Alfs, whether they be Dumundi's Alf or the Alf at GMMTV, or ex Nathapon or P Jojo, of course, at GMM, who is the guy who is not afraid to bring his like messy messes, and always is saying like, oh yeah, I'm like, it's queer as folk for me is what my influence is, or like Sham or something like that. And of course, new at Wabi Sabi, and Wabi Sabi, to speak about Wabi Sabi, one of the things that Wabi Sabi does really well is, in fact, explore and talk about like how they wanted to be as a company that is a safe space for actors to come out and be like openly whatever. So I think
was Wabi Sabi the one that did Love by Chance?
My 12%. Yes, it was.
So they went from only straight actors to now. Come out if you want.
Yeah, exactly right.
How did they do that?
With it's important to remember with Love by Chance, what's significant about Love by Chance is that it was initially going to be broadcast on MCOT, which is the same broadcaster as Lovesick back in the day, which is a public broadcaster who now produce BL. Of course they do, but back in and they basically dropped. They had a board of directors change, and the board of directors were very conservative, and this was at the same time as the transition to the authoritarian junta. And basically they nixed Love by Chance, and they had a lot of control over casting and production. So is it Studio Wabi Sabi, I think, is perhaps we need to think about them as emerging in the way that they now are post Love by Chance. After they made the jump to having it broadcast on GMM 25 and becoming more of an independent company. Though, of course, for Love by Chance, they had significant economic capital from China as well, which seems to have dried up a bit recently. So, yeah, and like New, of course, also from Wabi Sabi does directing work for other companies, like famously, for instance, he was the director for the Star in My Mind series with GMM, so that's Jung Dunk, and so forth, and he's done a few other things. Likewise, with the Eclipse, we have Tanwarin, I can't remember her last name, and of course Pinucci. Like we've got both women and a trans woman And Tan Wadin is significant because she has a long career in queer cinema. And as many, I don't think I need to tell anyone this, that she was also a member of the Thai parliament at one stage. Like she was a member for parliament. So like Thailand's first openly transgender member of parliament. So she's like significant in that regards as well. So yeah, like there's all of that needs to be celebrated. And I think that the kind of focusing on like getting obsessed over, but the boys, what are they? Like, yeah, like let's just remember that behind the camera, as well as in front of the camera, there's a lot of things going on in
Behind the
Thailand.
camera,
And as
people
I've already
exist.
spoken about, yeah, we can't like in Thailand, they can't come out still, sadly. Um, so it's very brave of those who have, like Kuhat's quite phenomenal in that regard, as well as the others. Pluster, for instance.
Who? Plus who?
Pluster.
Pasta. Okay, I'm not keeping up. All I know is Fluke. Fluke also on Wabi Sabi. Wabi Sabi is a nice, it seems like, because that's what I wanted to celebrate. Wabi Sabi's.
Oh, Wabi Sabi's great. I love Wabi Sabi. Like, I mean, I'm a Boon supremacist, so of course I love Wabi Sabi. Though, as I said, Between Us is not in my top, but I like it. I haven't watched the recent episode, and I probably won't get a chance to watch it for several days, unfortunately, because after this conversation wraps up, I'm heading down to rural Australia to go and spend time with my family, so I won't have good internet.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so Wabi Sabi I think is great, and I'm glad that they have had the success that they've had with Between Us, and I hope that leads to bigger things. For especially as they have their new stable, if you will, of talents coming through, and I do hope that company manages to continue to be active, but like they are, like unlike others, like they've had issues with getting capital and so forth, which might be partly due to their political stances that they take. I don't know, but yeah, and that's unfortunate because it's a company that I feel very strongly about, and think that they're doing an excellent job. But we need to remember that BL is not just a political thing; it's an economic thing, and economically, maybe they're not viewed as the safest bet from investors, which is sad.
So who are all the investors going to? Like, what are the companies?
GMM,
Okay.
DHut, Dumundi. That's where the money is going. It's like, if you saw for Dumundi's DMD, if you will, their lineup for 2023, and like just the amount of money that was thrown at the Z Nunu Prince series, like some of that money comes from China, some of that money comes from Japan, some of that money comes from Korea. Like it's because like Dumundi has managed to create a strong relationship with financial backers in South Korea, and that's, I think, a big deal. That just as GMM has managed to create strong relationships with companies in Japan, and I think that's where things are beginning to start to play out in this Southeast Asia to East Asia production system that is beginning to emerge, and the decoupling of some of these major producers from Chinese capital, which is becoming increasingly volatile as the Chinese state begins to crack down on fan culture and BL, increasingly, sadly, which, that's just what it is.
I don't even know about that.
Yes, I always remind people that one of the things that I pay attention to, I have a friend who is a music journalist who specializes in Japanese popular culture, actually. And one of his favorite kind of catchphrases is follow the numbers. And I think that we need to do that as well with BL, like viewership, but also the money, like the finances. And that side is just as important as the fandom culture. And it is something that my role as a scholar is to kind of explicate. And if 2022 has brought us anything, it is a diversification of the capital investment flows into the BL industry, which, yes, isn't very sexy. It isn't very fun to talk about. But, the successful productions of 2022 are all the results of a diversified capital flow.
Is that like, unfortunate for any sort of up and coming studios or other countries that don't have as much.
Yeah, and it is actually so what we're beginning to see is a consolidation of production companies that have results. So GMM, Dumundi, probably Beyond Cloud into the future, where we see that because they have managed to make bank, companies are going to increasingly invest into them, which means that the smaller companies that are seeking to rise up are probably going to be less likely to be successful. And we're seeing that sadly with the overproduction of BL right now in Thailand in particular, where we're getting a lot of quickly made, cheaply made content that unfortunately is not managing, despite doing very well or being quite interesting, and I'm thinking once again here of My Ride, I Love You, like just due to the vagaries of the ways in which the market operates, they're getting excluded despite making a good quality product. Yeah, so yes, I see. Oh, and now we need to do our สนับสนุนหน่อย Oishi honey lemon.
No, because you said also, yeah, one of the things with like the Philippines is now they have to compete against Thailand, or the audience is not watching Filipino videos because their quality doesn't live up to. And so there's going to be this increasing disparity. And I just have concerns that any other country that's trying to get into this industry, because like obviously the effects that those countries will see for their own LGBT contextual issues and stuff.
And I think that I agree and I share that concern, but the rise of the Thai BL industry is an indication that it's possible, because the Thai BL industry, when it emerged back in 2013, 2014, 2015, was the powerless group that had no money trying to create a niche for itself. And the fact is that now we're in 2022, 2023, being able to talk about the massive millions of dollars circulating between Japan, Thailand, South Korea, and China. And the fact that Thailand, which, when I used to talk to my colleagues in Asian media studies, and I would make my predictions, oh yeah, Thailand's going to be the next big thing. Like, what are you talking about? Are you insane? If I said that to them now, like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? Like, so who knows? Like, there might be like it's just can content producers buck the system? It's very difficult to do, and the problem is that we do live in a capitalist world, sadly, and that capitalism as a social structure is predicated on people being excluded access to capital, right? Or more importantly, having their production exploited for this to kind of support those who already have resources. So, like, I think about the Philippines very carefully within this context, because there is a lot of good quality content and good quality politics coming out of the Philippines. And God, they even have, like, the Filipinos have one advantage that none of these East Asian companies or Southeast Asian companies have, which is, of course, English proficiency. Right?
Kokoi. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, there's Kokoi too. Like and hot boys, but like every country has hot boys. Like, there's no one has a monopoly on hot boys.
Not Antarctica.
So the problem is that, like, the systems of global capital disadvantage producers like the Philippines, disadvantages producers like Vietnam and Myanmar, disadvantages producers even in a country like Singapore, right? Which has,
it's rich,
like,
right?
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is that there isn't, like, Singapore does not have a massive, like, when it comes to media, they're a consumer company, not a producing company, right? So that means, like, something like Summer Days, which is really cute, like they weren't able to get their funding goals, which was really sad. So, like, there is a global structure, and 2022 is a story of that kind of capitalist structure tightening rather than diversifying, sadly. So yeah, and like if we're talking about best of BL, like it's the companies that have managed to claw their way into and kind of consolidate their control over these international flows of money that like there's a reason why those series are successful. I mean, GMM, for instance, is able to make their content widely available for global streaming because they don't have to worry about like losing out on the potential money through streaming rights, right? Like, so they're able to do that. Whereas smaller companies have to turn to boutique streaming services like Gaga Ulala, WeTV, iQIYI, and hence have to release their content globally in a form that requires consumers to pay for it.
Is that why we have trouble reacting to some things? Because everyone's reacting to GMMTV freely, but then
Yes, yeah, and
everyone's
GMM's like
losing
really good
interest.
with that. Like, yeah, they have their guidelines, but like some series are really. I mean, so South Korean series actually, they're those companies like are really protective over the right image rights, as are some Japanese series. So like, which makes it very hard for reaction channels such as yourself to engage with and do the free promotion that actually helps these companies. Like, there's a whole, and like, we don't need to go into all of that, but like some Thai companies really know what they're doing when it comes to allowing this sort of content, derivative works and so forth. So yes, yeah, that's
Should we
yeah.
wrap up with what you're looking forward to in this year now that it's 2023?
Yes.
Um,
Okay. I mean, I think that I've kind of seeded a little bit of what I'm looking forward to already. But I think like if I'm gonna like list say a few shows that I'm desperately like excited for both like and maybe this will just be me personally speaking. So I feel you linger in the air. Absolutely. I went to the worship ceremony and Nongkun and Bright are ridiculously beautiful. So I'm looking forward to that. Um, when it comes to Dumundi, I am a massive fan of Net James, so I'm looking forward to Bed Friends. Like, I don't think that's going to be anything beyond just two hot guys having sex constantly. So, whatever. I'm leaning into my shallowness now. From GMM, Last Twilight, I think will be really good. Close Friends, I think is what it's called. The poly mess. Absolutely
Yes.
looking forward to that. Because I just like as I said, I'm a sucker for hot guys having sex. Our Sky 2, I think, is going to be really cool because we get to revisit the worlds of a few series that I've quite enjoyed. Um, for anything else from Dumundi, I'm looking forward to. Uh, I mean, the Prince one, I'll watch. I think it'll be silly. And then, if I have to be really honest, one of the things that I'm really, really looking for is 23.5,
Mm.
the GL series with Milk and Love from GMM. Like, I'm all for that. I'm like, this is the BL discussion, but if we're going to talk about series from 2022 that are really important, Gap the series. Absolutely. But yeah, so they're the ones that are on my like quite excited to watch list. And then there's all sorts of things that I've heard rumors about coming up that I also am looking forward to. But because they're rumors, I can't really talk about them. Oh, and yeah, shout out to My Imaginary Boyfriend. I think that'll be fun.
what about because I was watching your Twitter, the Tenyu, why are they back?
Oh yeah,
For
Cherry
Cherry
Magic.
Magic.
Like
Why are they back?
so I'm
How are they
excited for
back?
that one too. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm a Tainu tragic, so obviously, like, as I think I said this to someone on Twitter the other day, like, I think that they're sick of me by now because they see me too often. Um, so, like, yeah, I like Cherry Magic Thailand is going to be a lot of fun. But I'm actually just a little bit more excited from those series that I mentioned over Cherry Magic Thailand, and that's just because we haven't had a trailer for Cherry Magic Thailand yet.
Hmm.
For various reasons, copyright reasons, because Japan has like their copyright law exists in the 1950s, so that's why.
Is
Um,
there a shelf life for BL couples? Because I'm surprised that I didn't think Tanya was gonna keep doing things, and I feel like we're missing out on Earth Mix this year. And so
Well,
like
I mean, Earthmix, we have the Midnight series, much delayed,
yeah.
much delayed Midnight series. So that I think we should be thinking about it as a 2023 series, even though it wasn't supposed to be. GMM Angry Stare, but yeah, and like My School President, like, which I know is already airing, but like I'm still excited for that one. I think that one's gonna be a big deal. Um, I mean, it already is. And then anything that Gemini and Fourth do moving forward, I'll be there for. Um, anything else? Any ships that like there are a few ships floating around from the good old days that have content coming up that I'm kind of happy to see. I'm like, for example, 609 bedtime or whatever it's called. Like I'm just happy to see Fluke again in something that isn't Oh My Sunshine Night. Um, Likewise, yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming out. I mean, the thing about Japan and South Korea is that they don't necessarily announce things with a long lead up, so I can't really predict what I'm looking forward to there, like in many ways. So they're always for me like pleasant surprises. I hope that there's something from another country that gets me excited, because I really do genuinely enjoy kind of engaging with things that I don't expect. So I hope that the big hit for me in 2023 will be something I didn't expect. So God knows, maybe it'll be like a boss and a babe. I don't know. Who knows?
Is that time travel one with Crystal coming out? Is that still
Yeah. With Fluke, that one, yeah, that one is like likewise delayed because Mike pulled out of the project for unspecified reasons that I know a little more about that I can't talk about. Yeah, there's some stuff going on there.
No, it's
Not
like
bad stuff. Not bad stuff. Like, it's just there was some messiness involved with that series. That's a novel by Ginny Rain.
oh right. I feels like yeah, because there's already some delay. There was a delay last year for this year, and then there's gonna keep going. There's so many delays.
GMM is very like, I think one thing we need to remember, like with the series, like with those announcements, they are mostly produced. Like, and there's a commitment to produce them. Sometimes they just don't get produced in the timelines that GMM initially outlined. And GMM 2022 was a bit of a rough year for them as a company. I think it's something to add. So, I mean, and I'm going to see like, oh, the poor company, boo.
No,
Like, they did have some issues, the issues of their own creation.
exactly. It's their own fault. Like,
yeah, you don't cut like all of your staff and then complain about not being able to do anything. Like, I guess is what I'm going to say. Regardless of that. So yeah, I guess what are you guys excited for? Since this has been me talking at you once again for almost 2 hours.
Go ahead, Edison.
No, you go ahead. I don't know what I'm excited for.
Mine is the Milk Love series.
I mean, like I was constantly saying to people, like they've been seeding that series for at least a year, and those two are so cute.
They're like, as soon as, even when we were, Edison will tell you, even when we were watching Bad Buddy, I was like, oh my god, this I love this side. I was already shipping them. I was like, they're together. Oh my goodness, they're together. And just
I was just like GMM, you're not slick. I can see what you're doing, and I'm all here for it. Because like, a lot of people are like, oh, Bad Buddy didn't have like a side couple. I'm like, yes, it did. Damn it! Like,
what? Why did they say they were like an official side? It wasn't even like,
I know. For some people, like some people don't see the girls, like, which is sad because like so like I was gonna say, like one actor who I love, like actress I love is Junhae, and she's been given a lot of shit roles, like, sadly. So I'm excited to see her in Cherry Magic, and I'm loving her in The Warp Effect. Speaking of like powerful lesbian women, yeah. I want more sapphic content. Damn it!
And I even I watched the magic of zero just for Milk Love, like also for Earth Mix. But like I was just like, it was a big commercial. I didn't care. Like I watched it.
If you're watching GMM stuff, like I've made my peace with like the Oishi honey lemon domination. Like, you know, I'm used to that. Like, oh yeah, oh look, yeah, Texas chicken, woo.
I was so keen for KFC being in a BL. I was like, these are my two dreams come true. Like,
So when I was in Bangkok, I did go to Texas chicken.
Is it any good?
I was just like, yes, I can now taste it. Oh, this is, and then I'm like, this is a plate of disappointment. Whereas I quite like Oishi, like some of the Oishi drinks, and they're everywhere and they're cheap. But Texas chicken, I'm sorry, guys, Texas chicken is just not good. Especially because there's better chicken franchises in Thailand.
I'm also excited about all of the, only because I've read, like, it was like my ride was my first BL that I read, only because it was because the series is so good, and then I read a whole bunch of his novels. I'm excited to see My Imaginary Boyfriend, 7 days, especially 7 days, because that switch the switch for My Imaginary Boyfriend also got me. And then just if there, I mean, you know, not to give stuff away, but like just the writing and stuff like that, and how that's going to come through screen.
I will send Patrick a message over line to let him know.
That I'm a big fan. Yeah, I also follow him on Twitter, and I'm just like, oh wow, yay!
Patrick,
so
follow him back if you're not already.
We can definitely react to his show, and then all that stuff. Yeah. I don't know what
I'm not just like he and I are not just like on Twitter, like Facebook. Like I've got his personal. Like he's like Patrick's great, so like I'm excited for his work. The sub couple as well, like. Were the sub couple from Golden Blood, and I kind of liked them in that. So yeah.
Tell him he has a fan in the US. Well, just not he put many, but one just like, oh.
We'll do. As I said, like I am a big fan of Patrick's work and a big fan of Patrick myself. So like he's a lovely guy. Yeah. When I met him in Bangkok, he gave me all of his books.
Gave?
Like, I'm just like, yeah. Yeah, like, oh my God. So generous, like really generous with his time with me. So I really appreciate him. So guys, go and watch his stuff.
I've purchased the books and for Kindle and stuff like that. So I'm just, I want to support. Like,
I'm hoping for some sort of, I think I don't have mainstream tastes, so I'm hoping for something that's innovative to come out hopefully next year. Do we know if BKPP are planning to do anything, or
not as far as I know?
I just
not right now.
The Talk Sunset About You.
I mean, that's now on Netflix Global. If you want to give it a rewatch.
Even Australia, we don't get anything in Australia.
No, in Australia too. I think
that's so good.
Yeah, it was released globally as opposed to regionally. Yes, yeah. No, I haven't heard anything. I mean, Bjugin is focusing more on his music, I think, right now, as is PP.
Everyone's an idol now.
Yeah. And I mean, that's in my book. I talk about why that's the case. That's why they're always singing, guys. I also wish that they would stop, but it's not going to happen.
Not in My School President. I think the songs are great.
My School President's brilliant. Like I have no problems with that series whatsoever.
But maybe the other shows.
Yeah. I will literally attack people if they go for fourth and Gemini. I will jump through the screen. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else like I'm looking forward to. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the historical dramas. And I hope that we get some historical dramas coming out of South Korea that are a bit better than the ones we've had so far. I want to see like a BL, like a full BL K-drama rather than just a web series. That's my dearest hope. But I don't think we're at the stage where that will happen yet.
What qualifies for that? Because we watched My Happy Ending Romance. My Happy Ending Romance.
Yeah.
Happy Ending Romance.
So a K drama like that is not a web series, like that has an episode that is more than 40 minutes long. That's what I'm
40.
going to say.
40.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
That's
rather
a lot.
than the 15-minute to 30-minute series that we're like episodes we're getting currently with web series.
But obviously, from what we've learned, they'll need capitalistic funding. Like
yes, and like there's a reason why BL series in Korea are web series, that they're not on TV yet, or they're on cable TV at least. Yeah, so far. And like Japan, like there's a movie coming out from Japan called Egoist.
I want to watch that. Yeah,
that looks extraordinarily good, and it's based on like a prize-winning novel, so like it's going to be good. I look forward to seeing whatever happens in BL in Japan whilst I'm there in Japan is the best part for me. Like I'll be on the ground. It does mean, however, like because Japan's access to BL is very geo-blocked due to the nature of Japan's media landscape, so I will have to find ways to get around that. Not that
you can't watch Japanese BLs in Japan.
I mean, I've been watching them on TV. Like that's the thing. I'll be able to watch them live. Like, I mean, they're broadcast at stupid o'clock, but I'm always up at stupid o'clock, so that's not an issue.
Yeah, not to mention all the anime. That's also.
I don't watch it. Sorry to my students. I'm not an anime person. I respect and.
If your students are watching, I hope they tell you.
Watch. Yeah, exactly. So I read manga. Like I'll be reading them. I'll be getting my hands on manga when I'm there.
But I'm watching Mercury Witch Gundam, which is okay. Nobody's talking about it, but it's got a sapphic element to it. Anyways, oh yeah, My Beautiful Man, the movie. That's right.
That's yes, I can't wait. Yeah, no, that one comes out in cinemas. Both of these come out in cinemas before I come over, though, so I'm gonna have to get the DVDs because, like, Japan, as I said, lives in the past, so they still sell DVDs.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I guess that's it for us for the Family Actual. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us and giving all your wonderful insights. You've given us a lot to
Thank
think
you
about.
for putting up for me, as I said, for ranting for such a long time, as always.
Oh, if that's what we have to... No, I mean, like, wait, how do I... I mean, of course we'll do that, because you provide so many insights.
I'm just going to send out, like, if you've taken issue with any comments that I've made about any series, it is always subjective. Of course,
we say a lot worse on our reactions, honestly.
Yeah,
you at least you like.
I'm sorry, guys, that I really don't like War of Y. Come and debate me if you want. But I am about to run off to rural Australia, so I won't be in the next few days.
Throw that hand grenade into the room and run out.
No, it was really great.
Thank you for having me, as always. I enjoy getting to rant, clearly.
I think it's given us a lot of perspective, because I also rant a bit about how I feel like some shows are so commercialized and have a specific interest that they kind of water down or like compromise on certain things in order to appease a masser audience. And so that was my thing with Kim Poch in terms of like how they made everything a bit more nicer, and like that kind of compromised on some morality.
Money.
Yeah, money. But that's why I think appreciated a lot of shows that didn't really have that funding purpose, which is interesting because like Not Me was like, and The Eclipse were very political, but they still could do that.
I mean, and the thing is that they could have been more political. Like, they had to tread the line.
Yeah,
but that's why they're great within the space that they are active in.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to, I think, is just like more rebellious BLs that
I mean, one thing that I think I would mention, if you guys, like, either the two of you or like listeners aren't kind of watching the really indie stuff coming out of the northeast of Thailand, there's a lot of really cool kind of attempts to engage with BL from these rural spaces that perhaps, you know, they're not very polished, and, you know, this is, you know, we're talking about very indie stuff, but like that's kind of cool. Like I'm enjoying some of that when they pop up in my recommended on YouTube. Like I don't go out of my way to watch them, I'll be honest, but like there's a lot of cool stuff like that happening still. So yes, invest into the Doomundis and the GMMTVs, the Beyond Clouds and the D Hub houses of the world, but keep your eyes open for stuff from smaller companies and give it a chance. Don't write it off, because you may end up really enjoying it. Like, you know, I Long Nine, I enjoyed it. It's not good, but why not? Anyway. Because Ping is cute. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I think I better get going.
You're the embodiment of like you just like cute boys. That's all I need. Chemistry. You're like.
Yeah, I'm incredibly shallow as a consumer. As a fan, I'm very shallow. As an academic, I'm not. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for being here, Thomas. We'll finish off there. Please let us know what you think of whatever was said here. And hopefully we'll see you next time. And hopefully we'll have Thomas again for another discussion or for when his book comes out in July. Will we see you in Japan? Like, can you give us a tour or
We'll see. It depends how busy I am, what I'm up to. But who knows? Maybe I'll be able to do something fun from Japan. Okay.
All right.
I better get going. Bye.
See everybody.
Okay.